We are live. Hey, everybody. It's That D&D podcast coming to you on a Friday, which is a bit weird for us. But you might notice we have a very special guest hanging out in the middle of our screen.
To some, I mean, opinions vary. You know,
I mean, I said special. That doesn't necessarily imply a quality so much as just oddness. So,
yeah, exactly. Like unlike other things.
but yeah, we've got Jerry Holkins on for a segment that we're calling Improbable Interviews. If you were around last week, we had John Harper on, and he expressed a desire, Jerry. He expressed a very specific desire that we bridge the gap between the two of you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we talked a little bit on Twitter there, but
Yeah.
talking to people is like my favorite thing to do. So of course I'm amenable.
Awesome.
It's good.
Well, yeah. You and he should talk because I think that would be a fantastically nerdy thing in the world to do more of that.
Yeah. We were hoping he'd be available tonight, and we were going to surprise bring him in.
Oh, that's a radio classic technique.
Right.
You get some of my exes as well. You can just make a real evening of it.
Yeah, some Maury Povich, like...
Yeah.
We'll need like a chair flying emoji or something. Some kind of digital paternity test.
Yes. So afterwards, at some point, we have to find a way to link that chain between the two of you, and our duty will be done.
Yeah, Twitter is going to be the easiest way. As you saw, Aaron, very, very efficient, highly efficient schema for summoning Jerry's.
Some say my methods are unorthodox, but...
You can't argue with the results.
Yes. I still don't know how this happens, but I won't question it.
How can I be of service?
I mean, we have some cues if you would like to A them.
Yes.
I'm ready.
Awesome.
I specialize in the A.
Okay. Well, I've got one for you. So before I run sessions, like personally, I spend half an hour pacing around the living room trying not to anxiety puke. Do you have any sort of pre-game rituals that you partake in, whether willingly or unwillingly?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to say, and this is super important info, and it's probably something that is worth getting out there a little bit wider. Like that's normal for me too. There is a lot of pacing, I would say, especially before I go on camera for the C team or in this last one, like at South. I mean, I've never DM'd a game live on stage in front of that many people. That scared the shit out of me. And so yeah, there's a bunch of challenges. Even if you're not doing it like in a stream type scenario, I have absolutely had panic attacks before these stupid dungeons, and like it doesn't make any sense. But it all, at the end of the day, right? It all comes down to wanting to make something really special for people and holding yourself to a high standard. I would hate to think that there was some connection between me being as anxious as I am and people liking the games that I make, but there seems to be. I wish that weren't true.
That definitely checks out.
Yeah, I wish I could just have the fun game and then not have the terror, if that's possible. I don't know if you can talk to someone about that. But no, so pregame is usually a time for printing out a second copy of a note or like riffling through my little folder, making sure I have all the beasts I might need. And then a lot of times my news schema has involved making sure I have something for what I think is going to be the game after, because sometimes you don't know what they're going to do. And right, listen, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's nice to have about 4 to 5 hours in your back pocket. That's more or less what I figured out recently, just because especially with the C team, they tend to do things. This is probably common too. They tend to do things in a way that's different than I expect. It's like I don't think that players doing things like that, like they're not breaking the game or anything like that. If you've made a game that is breakable like that, you have failed at some point, probably. Maybe you have overwritten which is a problem that I think writers in general have. But basically, the way that I like to get to it is that, I mean, a lot of times they'll turn things that I have established as combat encounters into these super elaborate capers, and sometimes their capers are so ridiculous that I make them fight. So you never actually know. It's just good to have the notes. It's good to have what you think is going to be 4 or 5 hours, however they're going to eat it, and then you sort of have that stuff ready to go.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So I mean, to borrow your parlance, you've been into nerd shit since forever, it seems like.
Yeah, basically.
So you DM the C team, and I want to point out that in our notes that does have the quotes around it.
Oh, thank you so much. Like, that is actually like ridiculously important to me that the quotes be there. I'm not saying that's not an index of mental health on my part, but it really does mean something specific. Oh, here, hang on a second. No, we put it in the fridge. Remember? Oh, right. Sorry. So
that's quite all right.
My larva. You know, he put his soda in the fridge, but then he thought it was in here. This is the dumbest. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I knew where it was the whole time. And that's why I locked the door, because there's nothing in here. It's been a problem. I'm sorry, but yes, I appreciate your attention to detail in that matter.
Well, that also actually kind of dovetails a little perfectly, because you've been on Roleplay a couple times.
Yes,
and I believe
it
was Adam Coble, who's our next interview. Who is DMing you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've had the position as a player in one of his games. And I mean, Chris Perkins obviously has DM'd for you rather famously. So I mean, do you pillage their style at all, or like parts of their style, and like how consciously do you do so? No?
No.
That's really cool.
No, I've been doing this sort of thing, like the way that I do it. I mean, I think that. Well, again, not consciously. The fact of the matter is that you would probably know, as someone who is external to both of our perspectives, you may have a better sense of whether or not I crib from him. It's certainly not intentional. I think that I really do think that I think he's the best game master on Twitch. That's just my feeling. I think he is a real innovator, and I'm honored to call him a friend. But I haven't actively tried to rob him. I think that he and I do things. I think that he and I like the same sorts of things. We like there to be a philosophical substrate underneath the moment-to-moment gameplay constructs. Like we want to make we have a larger point that we're trying to make in the dialectic of the game. But I think that my stuff is a lot more surreal than his is, and I think that it's surreal, and it's a lot more. I think that it gets much goofier than his as well. And so to me, those things are sort of like the poles I'm trying to operate in. I want it to be really strange, and I think that because part of the reason I like it to be that sort of unformed is that there's a lot of places it can go. I can't really get stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
I let players. It's sort of like an ice tray or something, right? I let players sort of act as the ice tray, and they can shape the stuff that I'm giving them. And then it's like, because sometimes I don't necessarily know how things are going to go. Like in terms of my prep, Aaron, you're talking about prep, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that I try not to know.
Yeah, that helps a lot, I think.
Like there's things that I don't know are going to happen until I know how they react to it and what's important to them. And so again, it's not like, for me, sometimes it's not worth doing a lot of work along a specific thing, because that's actually something you can lose.
Yeah.
What I try to know is what motivates characters, not just PCs, but NPCs. And then I just try to, in my mind, maintain the variables in the world state. And then, but those are for them. And in fact, that's a theme of the game, that these are variables and they can be modified. So So yeah, I haven't tried to do it, but if you were to tell me that I did things the way he did it, I would be honored because I think he's the best there is online. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
it happens. It happens to everybody.
18 years and counting.
Going to the idea that you're a weirder DM. What's the weirdest thing you've ever thought up that you might need that never hit the table? Like,
oh man, that never actually arrived.
yeah, like because you talked about your players kind of you allow your players to take you in different directions. What's the weirdest thing they've ever taken you away from?
Oh well, I can go into a bunch of examples. So recently, what was it? It was established that there is a kind of nut economy in the town that they live in, the town that they are based in, called Red Larch. So we actually play in the Forgotten Realms, but the version of the Forgotten Realms. I mean, again, like I don't know who 100% plays the Forgotten Realms straight.
No one.
Like, it's so weird. It's so weird. Like you look at some of the names of these places, and you're like, okay, Ed, all right, cool name. So it's a stone bridge. All right, I give you. I'm picking what you're putting down, bud.
Yeah, like half the Forgotten Realms got named on the fly as he had to come up with the thing, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like you just like look around and it's like the name of this place is desk chair.
Yeah, your guys are so saying the entire
exactly
setting.
Exactly. And so there's a subtext in there. So there's the five sons of this. He's called the Nut Lord, and so the acorn is like the base metal. It's like the metal that provides the conceptual framework for their currency. So like a acorn is worth 5 almonds or something like that, and then it keeps on going out. It's like platinum or silver or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But there is a daughter who was basically kept out of the power structure that regulates all these nuts, named Praline. And she has a mole in the organization, but this is a literal mole. And so we never had that. So we never had that side story because they were able to secure everything that they needed in other ways. They were able to, get the ear of the Almond Prince and figure out this type of stuff and do jobs for them. But there was a whole side thing that was literally like a heist, like the nut job. But it involved the mole, like a literal mole, and then like figuring out because in the place there is like an otyug. Do you remember these things?
Yeah.
I've used them a few times.
Yeah, exactly right. And so there's one of these that exists in sort of the central vault that they keep all of their nuts for the winter, and then he is basically acting. It's like a set of pneumatic tubes that he's operating with his weird tentacles, and so yeah, that didn't end up in the game, but. I would say that's the sort of thing. Like I'm always ready to take things 100% too far. It's like in the first go around, there is a set of it's like a vampire party, but they were not actually vampires. They were like LARPers, but they played it up really hard. Like it was really, really important to them that they do everything exactly right. And they did it so right that vampire hunters were actually like trying to kill them. And but one of the cousins of these LARPers is like actually a werewolf, and he just wants to be let into their club, basically. I'm saying like this is actually like legit in the game. Like, and then you just because players like.
I mean,
that werewolf is like their favorite character. So
that's partially on you for giving him an incredible voice, because Trevor has the voice of an angel. Yes.
I got like one accent. I have like one accent, and then every other accent I try to do that's not the specific breed of Southern accent, like invariably becomes Jamaican. Like
Well, it's two accents. You have two accents then.
Not even intentionally. Like it starts out Irish and it's good. Like I feel like it's going to a good place, and then it falls apart. Like I can't maintain it.
I feel like I need to hear your example of a Southern accent now.
Oh,
as a person in the South.
It depends. Well, here I will forward it to you. I'd be too ashamed to try it now.
Okay,
but
that's fair.
I'll kick it over to you on a DM, and you can get a load of Trevor if you want to.
Sweet.
Trevor's.
So
go ahead.
I got to ask. So, what was the most or the weirdest left turn that your players took? Like, what's the thing that they latched onto the most that you weren't expecting?
Well, Trevor is one of them, but I should come up with another one because I already talked about that. So, because I actually just like mentioned that this werewolf was sad and sitting out on a rock. Like I was just trying to give detail and context because I want them to feel like they're in a place where time actually passes, and the people they encounter have their own problems and their own valid experiences. And so I just wanted to assess for them, because they had met this character, that he was out there and he was basically on the outside of this culture that he had done everything he could to absorb and be honored by. And one of the characters is just not gonna she's not gonna let me leave that. She's gonna have to go and talk to this werewolf, this teen werewolf. And try to make him feel better, and it ended up being like a therapy session for this werewolf, but in the context of the game. So I'm trying to think, because there's there's almost 100 hours of C Team now. I'm trying to think of a way that they really did. Oh, honestly, one of the biggest left turns. I established a character that I thought would play off of our druid Walnut Dawngrass quite well, named Brahma Ludier, and the romance between Walnut and Brahma actually is really the spine of the show in a lot of ways. Romance is a tricky business in a role-playing game. It requires a lot of buy-in, and just like an ordinary romance, like those things can go wrong very fast. But somehow I think that a lot of the credit has to go to Amy Falcone, who plays Walnut. We were able to put this, like, fundamentally, like, at a very real level, collaborate on a romance that I think feels good, and players and viewers are really engaged with. But I didn't mean for it to be the substrate of the campaign at all. It just happened that way.
That's how it just is now. Yeah.
Well, they valued it, right? It's like, that's why I can't plan everything. I need to see what they value, and then I need to give them greater resolution on those things.
Awesome.
That makes total sense.
So one of our main mission statements since we've kind of started our podcast has been, inclusivity for everybody, regardless of, whatever. And
Absolutely.
We spent a long time talking with John about this last week, and kind of with Kate getting hired over on to work on D&D, and kind of the
we coached Kate and coached. We were like, we're gonna transform her into a kind of just completely irresistible device in that context. She is a powerhouse.
Oh yeah, but there was some people who I guess questioned her credibility for the job, and assholes on the internet being assholes, basically. What's your read on kind of the general state of the push for inclusivity in tabletop games, and how do you think that compares with people trying to be more inclusive with video games and that sort of stuff? Yeah,
I mean, I think that to a certain extent, I feel like a lot of that is actually like you have assessed it quite well in terms of like people on the internet being assholes. I feel like that's more or less a common thing, but that doesn't mean that we have to invite them into our spaces and give them aid and comfort.
Yep.
You know, when it comes to like, so it should be established that the romance that forms the substrate of my campaign is a queer romance, and that's what felt true. Like that's like walnut is queer, and it's important that I present something like that. For me, that's not the idea that one of the characters in my game is queer is not like that's not something on the character sheet. Like I have to simulate the entire universe, and I have to honor the motivations and intentions of every character in my game. And so in my game, that means that the world has a place for them in it, and that means love too. That doesn't just mean like a call out and say, "Oh, look at this! Like, look at what we're doing." No, this is actually a really important part of the game. Like, people fall in love in my game, and it is a real thing. And these are complicated relationships, but they're modeled in a way that, I hope makes sense and honors the people who are involved in it.
Nice.
So I remember on one of the C Team episodes, you put, and it felt like you were speaking more to Ryan than to his character.
Could be.
When you put a gambling minigame in front of him. Because I think he locked eyes with you and called you a son of a bitch or something similar.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. It's because that's actually an axis upon which Ryan and I really connect. So, and it started at PAX Oz. So, PAX Oz is a really, really fun show, and you should go. But I understand why you might not, because it's very far away. So,
It really is.
but so you have the Melbourne Convention Center, colloquially called Jeff's Shed, and then across the street you have a massive gambling complex, like a casino, but it's a casino on a massive scale with tons of restaurants and attached hotels and a movie theater. Like, it's a very, very, like, it's kind of a cool value add for, my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'll go over there, and it's like after a day of the show doing what we're going to do, a lot of times Ryan and I will be over there late at night. And so a lot of times we end up with the Jackbox team for some reason.
Okay.
So we'll head over there. We might grab dinner or something like that. And then there's typically there's a $5 blackjack table like downstairs by the parking garage,
where the best blackjack happens, obviously.
Well, exactly. They call it the party pit. And I don't think that it has it's like away from the casino proper. Like, I don't think it has a good connotation, but $5, like the rest of the table is like $30 blackjack seems like a thing for crazy people to do.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not going to do that. It's like playing $100 war or something like that. No way. Bad plan. And so I knew that he would like that. So I and Eric Benson, who works with the sort of like storylines with me, there was just one night where we came up with a bunch of games. And so we came up with actually 3 games in one night. There's a lot of variation. So part of that's philosophical, right? So we think that if there's going to be a game, there's going to be local variants and regional variants of it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's fair.
And so we did Giants and Halflings. Basically, it's like the player has 2d6 and the dungeon master has a d10. And so there's a range of abilities in there, but conceptually the idea is that you have these small things and they're attacking this large thing, but the small things can't roll an 11 or a 12. That's called the maw, right? That means the halflings are just eaten. You lose outright. And then if the giant ever rolls a 1, the player automatically loses there as well. So there's a bunch of structures inside there for like instant losses, and we had our engineer do a systematic, a mechanical assessment of it in terms of the percentages of wins and losses, and so he came up with a variant called Pickpocket that is more Vegas odds. It's much harder for the player to lose. Or it's much harder for the player to win, but we stuck with giants and halflings, even though it has an advantage for the player for 2 reasons. One, I want the player to win in a game that's about players.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
two, we built that into a place in the game where there was basically an entity, lizard, like a lizard folk king, that was basically skimming the joy. So players in his casino would win, and the joy that they would feel at winning, he would skim off the top. And he would take that joy and psychic energy, and he would bet that in another game he was playing in the Shadow Realm.
The house always gets a cut.
Exactly, right? The house wins is the name of that arc. And so the idea was that, so I was able to take the mechanics aspect of it, but actually go in and say, oh, okay, well, there's a reason for that mechanically. Like, there's a reason why he's chosen this game that gives you a slight edge, because he doesn't care about gold. The game he's playing is much greater than the wealth of a specific lizard folk tribe at this moment in time, right? That was during the Death Curse, and it was before the lizard folk understood what was actually happening, right? But there's another one called Vaults, and so the idea that it's regional, right? So there's Dragonborn work a little bit differently in the C-Team game than they do like in base Forgotten Realms D&D. And Vaults is basically you are competing against an escalating series of dice where the values are constantly getting higher until ultimately you're rolling 2d6 against a d20. But the values and the amounts you can win are just getting super, super high. And then I put a special rule in at the end where there's a way you can buy a dagger with some of your winnings. It's an extra d4, but if you don't use the dagger, the winnings are higher.
Oh.
I knew that this would basically choke him out.
Yeah.
Like I knew that he wouldn't be able to resist that, and so I took full advantage of his dragon sickness in that regard. Yes. So yeah, I mean, the DM tip there is know your players, but not just the characters, know your players too, because as we know, right, in our line of work, as we know, those characters are projections of some kind. Oh, yeah. There's some aspect of their personality that is being referenced or is being expanded or is being explored by their use of this extra character, right? Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea has to come from somewhere in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Exactly. Like it's about identity. Like, it's a way to play around with identity, I think.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, and then it might lead to a follow-up question. I've seen you play. I've seen you play a lot of run a lot of D&D. I've seen you play Dogs in the Vineyard. Mm-hmm. I believe you played Tales from the Loop on a stream as well, right?
Oh, yeah, that was another one of the roleplay streams. Yeah, with Adam.
Yeah.
Such a good game.
Yeah.
I loved that game.
Yeah.
It's really good, right?
I love Austin. Like, I feel like Austin and I, like, when we get together in a party, like, I feel like shit happens.
He was in both of those too.
Yeah,
he was indeed.
He was.
And in both of them, we formed a very powerful narrative axis. Basically, what Austin and I like to do is co-DM. We're those players.
Yeah, we have none of those. None of those people.
Why does this car have 4 steering wheels? I just don't understand.
Indeed. There's a steering wheel in the glove box.
Uh-huh. So the rest of that question, I guess, is how dialed in do you feel to, like, that side of things, the sort of indie side of tabletop RPGs?
Oh, I'm obsessed with indie RPGs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the main games that I play that people see anyway are going to be like D&D because we do Acquisitions Incorporated at the shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I love this is just an opportunity for us to geek out about indie RPGs, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It sure is.
Is that what's happening?
That's
Okay,
the
great.
idea.
Do the
Go
thing. We are all the way here for this. Do the thing.
Well, here, let me see what else is up on my...
Are we doing the shelf pull?
Yeah.
Are we all doing the shelf pull? Is that happening
Oh,
now?
yeah. I'm trying to see what I have on this shelf because the rest of them are upstairs. But... Yes. 13th Age, I think is
Oh yeah,
Yep.
Right over here.
very good.
Yep.
that's how we all met.
Yeah.
Oh, 13th Age is fucking incredible, right?
Yep.
The escalation die is like a thing
oh,
of beauty for combat.
It's pure magic.
The trolls are a little unbalanced.
Yeah. I love Brad Talton. I haven't had a chance to play Mystic Imperium yet,
Oh yeah.
but it would not surprise me if it was incredible. Let's see, what else do I got up here? I don't have it right here. Those books are upstairs.
Yeah.
But I am very, very fond of Torchbearer.
Yeah.
Of course, that's based on Burning Wheel, right? And so Torchbearer, Mouse Guard, it's all the same shit, right?
Yeah. We did Mouse Guard on stream. It was good.
So
Good
magical. What do you see over there, Aaron? You got something good up there?
Most of my stuff is PDFs that I've printed out and marked all
totally.
over. And
Hey! Have you seen? So I see an Edge of the Empire down there.
Yep.
Have you seen?
Uh-huh.
Have you flipped through Genesis?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. The three
Yes.
of us over here are
there you go.
plotting.
It's
Yeah.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
are
I mean, I
among
flipped
good
that.
company.
Oh man, I flipped through that and I was like, this is exactly right.
So-
Because to me, Genesis feels so indie.
It does.
has-
It really does.
My favorite thing about the book that I've seen so far is it actually has a paragraph on the social contract. It says you're playing a game, like talk about things that you sort of want to see, that you don't want to see. Like I've seen games address the social contract, but never so explicitly.
Explicitly, right? Hey,
Yeah.
have any of you seen the Acquisitions Incorporated that we did in Star Wars?
Yes.
Because
that sounds familiar.
I think that system is pure magic.
Yeah.
And honestly, especially if you're doing a stream game, it is really, really nice to have the app.
It's so cinematic too, just the
Yeah,
rules
it
in
is.
general.
Oh,
I
definitely.
love the dice. They're
Well,
so
and-
tactile and delicious.
Oh, and we had a really good time. And it was foreordained, right? Because we had Jesse Cox,
Yep.
who is a super fun guy to play games with, and
Yep.
we also had Holly Conrad, who I'm a big fan of. And they were already good friends, and so we were able to put together a really great table. Of course, Chris Straub was there as well, and he's one of my best friends, so we always have fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
so I had
Mike GM'd that, right?
He
Yeah,
did
I
indeed.
Other
Not-
Mike.
different Mike.
Not
Sorry,
our
Mike.
Mike.
Not our Mike. Their Mike. Their Mike.
No,
I'm
but
also Mike.
he is a incredible dungeon master, I think.
Yeah. Aaron, I don't want to step on your toes. I do have an
Go
immediate
for it.
follow-up, however.
Do it.
So you already sort of partially answered this, so it might not take very long. With your obvious now love of the larger selection of RPGs,
Oh yeah.
it's interesting to me that you do basically only run D&D when you have an audience, essentially, right?
Yeah.
What is there something? What is your reasoning for that? And do you feel like that has the tools that you want to tell the stories that you are obviously really into telling?
Yeah, I mean D&D. One of the things that D&D can do is there's a lot of people who play role-playing games, and a lot of them have played D&D, and so they sort of feel it feels homey to them, right?
Okay.
Systemically, and so that's inviting to those people. If you're not into RPGs but you like stories, I try to run the kind of campaign where you can come in for the story stuff too. But generally speaking, if you've played RPGs, even if you're mostly into indie, type content,
Yeah.
you are going to be totally fine in a context where we're talking about dragons and or dungeons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this season, honestly, have you heard of Quiet Year?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I honestly think that I'm actually going to take the stream, and I think we're going to do a Quiet Year
Nice.
Yes, that was
Nice.
really good.
for a few games, right? So, because for me, it does a couple things. One, it exposes people to a Quiet Year,
Uh huh.
Mhm.
which means they might get into Monster Hearts or something like that later. I mean, I want that to happen. Like, I want that to be a thing that people do, because it'll also expose them to indie RPGs in general, which means they might find
Yep.
a new favorite, right?
Mhm.
The second thing is that we can actually use that. I mean, they won't know 100% of it, but I can use that to reveal things about the game state and the game world that we're already doing.
Yes.
I can use that to found something. Like we can do the Quiet Year, but the events that occur in that Quiet Year will be 4,000 years old.
Yep.
And so
Uh-huh.
now they'll
Okay.
actually understand the substrate of a town that they are very familiar with, but they will actually know things about its founding. And then via that information, they will know things that they need in the modern day.
Well,
Right?
That's cool.
So,
It's
That's cool.
founding and its eventual ruination, and then
Oh, yeah.
maybe reconstruction. Like that's
ruination is definitely going to be key. But there's a bunch of great stuff. I would also like to honestly, I'd love to do Mouse Guard as well.
Mouse Guard's fun. Mouse Guard's
oh,
especially
with
now
the
that we-
nut economy too.
Now that I've established that there are these squirrels, like squirrels and mice are not going to get along.
Yeah.
Right. Now that
Wow.
I've established that there is a squirrel mafia in the city,
Yep.
if they have to contend with this as mice, and then because I've turned them into mice once already.
Well, and yeah, there was the cat as well,
Uh-huh.
with which a bargain
Yeah.
was struck.
Exactly. And so Onyx, the cat that lives in the inn that they stay at, basically, I would love to flip back to a situation where this is not the cat in their inn, but is again a kind of dragon, a draconic force, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Mouse Guard is another one, but I mean, I have lots and lots of favorites. I mean, I'd love to do, wrap a season and then do cool one shots like I've seen a lot of these other games do. I mean, my favorite, a great scenario for me would be to set them up in Deadlands
Okay. Okay.
and
yeah.
do some Weird West, but with the same archetypes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That'd be
I think
cool.
so too. A+ would do again.
Yeah. No, that sounds like some rad shit.
It really does.
I'm ready. I'm ready to do it.
Have you ever played Fiasco?
Oh, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to. I just wanted to make sure.
It's pure magic. I mean, the reality is that I'm blessed, as we are from time to time, with players that are here for this shit. Like they're ready to go, and so
200%.
right, and so I think that I could expose them to any of these weird, borderline fetishistic systems. Because with Fiasco, it's all about the playset, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff. I mean, generally speaking, Fiasco doesn't have a dungeon master.
Right.
But if
Right.
you've never played it before, generally speaking, somebody's sort of acting in that role
In charge.
anyway. So if you have somebody who is acting in that role, maybe Fiasco might even be better. Who knows? Somebody who just who just enables everybody else to have a good time and tell a cool story.
Or just
Yes.
pushes them to do something stupid over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Fiasco in a nutshell. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There is a playbook about like a group of adventurers returning to a town, like
There's a
triumphant
D&D
from a
inspired.
dungeon
Yeah.
delve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragon
And,
Slayers.
I think it might be Dragon Slayers, and of
There's a
course,
playset.
Yeah.
everybody in there is an asshole. I'll send it to you after the
Please.
show. I'll give you a link to it. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We
No.
used that to build between season 1 and 2 of this mega campaign thing I'm running,
Oh,
and
kick-ass.
now there's just a huge level of the dungeon that's basically controlled by a lich queen.
Well, exactly right. So for me, especially with this second season,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there is, every system I think excels at modeling different types of situations. One of the things I like about Burning Wheel is that there's a single resolution system for all interactions. If something is a conflict, that is to say, if something requires chance or dice, it's the same system in every case, only the weapons differ. And so I think that means that it is especially adept at certain types of scenarios. Now, like I say, Quiet Year, Mouse Guard, like all these would be interesting. And I'm also, another thing that appeals to me is that it would really be alien. Like to take them and put their characters into Mouse Guard would only, it would be using a system, like a mechanical system that just emphasizes how alien their experience is. It's so alien, in fact, that it requires a completely other mediation system.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we can use. I think that we can use other systems, even in the same campaign, just to amplify the realities that they're experiencing. Right. I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I had my story time, just real short, is I had a guy who ran a game for us for a couple of years at a comic book shop I used to frequent back in college, and we were playing interdimensional investigators, and the base game was D20 Modern, but every dimension was a different RPG system.
That is so fucking great.
It was really good. Shout out to my boy Jeremy Collins.
That is so good
stuff.
What a pro.
Yeah. So I mean, introducing players to new systems is something that we just talked about a bit. I've found through my career DMing that there's a certain kind of alchemy or black magic or voodoo or other mystical force that like a brand new role player brings to a table.
Definitely. That's why I have Ryan.
Yeah.
At my table.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is that sort of your favorite part of role-playing games? Because that's definitely my thing, is seeing what new way this person's just going to ruin anything I thought I had planned.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge and the benefit to a player that is new to the medium in general, not a system, but the medium, is how dynamic their experience can be. Because it can be a challenge too. Like it isn't all good.
Yep.
But I think it's incumbent upon us. So, I mean, different people might have different ideas about this, but I think it's incumbent upon us as game masters, if not specifically dungeon masters, to reveal different systems to our players. Like I feel like that's actually like a responsibility that we have. Because different people they're gonna shine in different types of systems. Look at how something might work in Mouse Guard or Torchbearer, where it's established like mechanically in the system that you need to physically offer a die if you are helping someone.
Yeah.
Right? That is one of the coolest. Like, it's such a dumb thing.
Oh, it's so good though.
But you take that dice and you give it to your friend, and if they have the angry condition, they can't do it.
Yep.
Like, and angry is a very, very easy condition to grant.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody can't give that dice, and everybody is sort of explaining, and also they have to explain why you get the dice, I feel like that is like RP fuel, especially for new players, because it's like they know they want advantages, and they know that a success or failure on a die is a really, really big deal. But it's like you can sort of train them with that system. Say, okay, well, tell me more about this. Which of these skills you're going to use? And they can get trained up. I feel like Burning Wheel is actually a very good system. It has some kind of complicated things in terms of how progression works, but that first game, you can teach a new player a lot about RP in general, just based on how that conflict resolution system works.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the narrative dice in Genesis and the Star Wars role-playing games. Just get a handful of dice, throw them all across the table, and
it's divination.
Yeah,
I mean, especially in Genesis and all that type of stuff, it's divination at root.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is really, really a crazy. I think that's a really crazy system, honestly. Like, I don't know. I have not talked to anybody at Fantasy Flight about it. Like, I don't know if those books are doing well for them. Like, I don't know if it's working, but that is, out of any of the big systems that have like a license or like a sort of like, I see in game shops a lot, like that is the one that has it has the biggest, like the production values on it are very high, but it also has the highest quotient of what I would describe as like rich narrative indie storytelling stuff built into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your new player thing, like it's not like in D&D where you roll and you add some numbers and you like compare to an off-screen number that you have to meet or something. It's like when you roll those dice, you just total them up and you do the divination and that tells you what happens.
There's so much collaboration. I mean, that's the thing. It's like when those dice hit the tray, and like I said, when we did our game, we were actually the app, and so it's super legible for everybody who's playing. Everybody's in there, and then we're all sort of like, it's just sort of accepted that your friends are going to have good ideas about what you do or what happens based on how you can do it. And obviously they have a big bank of things that you can expend a kind of currency to purchase narrative events. Like we know this, like we know that those tables are there, but we also, especially if we've spent time with storyteller systems, right? Yep. We also know that we're really just talking about thresholds at the end of the day, and the right kind of player. And this can be a new player, it can be a longtime player. They can take that and they can expend that in an economy that's they're not going to encounter in a book. We're going to make something completely new because the success tier that they have done here, or they have, the mechanical thing that I love about that game is that you can fail well or succeed poorly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And because you can do that, there's a lot of humor, especially in the Star Wars flavor of that system. There's a lot of really funny things that can happen too, and a lot of serious things, just based on these really odd amalgamations of success and failure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, don't heal angry, right, Zach?
Don't heal angry. Don't heal angry. It's bad. It's real bad news.
All right, so bit of a change in focus real quick, but you've got a family, you've got younglings.
Oh yeah.
So with relationships and people need tending to, and your webcomic and everything else that's going on, how do you find time to plan for sessions and in the stream?
Well, I have an advantage that a lot of DMs don't, which is that, especially for the C team, I mean, that's actually something I get to do as part of my job. And there's a little bit of, it's super cool, but that's not something that every DM gets, and I know that. I try to appreciate the fact that that's something that I get to do, like on a Wednesday when I'm at work. I hang out with my friend Eric Benson, and we try to put that stuff together. Just like on Tuesday, noon rolls around, we're literally brewing beers and drinking beers based on people's D&D characters. Like, look, that's not a universal. I'll tell you where I run into trouble is I actually run a game for my son and 4 of his friends.
Oh, nice.
And so a lot of that stuff has to come straight off the dome. I'll be perfectly honest with you. We've all had to run that session, but I run that session every time for them. And since they're learning, it's okay.
Yeah. How old's your son?
Oh, he's 12.
Yeah.
Don't start me. Listen, I've been drinking. Don't start me on my son. Like, this conversation.
I got a 7-year-old.
Oh wow! See, my daughter's 8. Like, that's a super fun age, dude. Don't start me on this.
5 and 11.
Oh, 5 and 11.
Yeah.
What a hoot!
I'm not quite 2 yet, so we always catch up.
I'm working on making a Super Mario themed RPG for them to play.
Nice.
For you on the podcast, I've just covered my face in delight.
I got them each giant D6s, and like the way their faces lit up when they saw them, it was. Hold on, no, it's fine. I'm looking over here.
I'm working on getting my 7-year-old into game systems. We're playing Drop Mix with
Drop Mix. I think Drop Mix is really, really special. My daughter really, really enjoyed her experience with it. She's taking piano, but You know, when she's 18, God only knows what instruments will look like.
Yep.
You know, a lot of times, I mean, now you have the piano as a general construct, but really it's like a MIDI interface for people who make music with it, right?
A little bit.
It's sample pads and weird shit like that. Like I feel like drop mix is like a cultural touchstone. Like I'm super, super impressed with what they've done there.
Yeah, I love introducing my kids to new systems. I'm not quite at D20s and D6s yet, but we'll get there.
Oh yeah. It's just a matter of time, you know. And the reality is that, you know, when you're playing with them, like you don't have to iterate absolutely everything in the DMG. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that you can just resolve and figure out at the table. I mean, like for the kids that come over for the Sunday game, a lot of what we're doing and putting together is really about like, okay, it's D&D like at root, but I really employ like threshold of success just in a storytelling context for them, and it really, really works. But it's really, really funny, you know, especially if you're playing with kids, is like, you know, like their cultural touchstones are just like they're not necessarily mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the references because I live on the internet, right? But not every parent is going to live on the internet, right? At least in my generation, I think from now on that's just going to be a norm. But like my son's character is essentially a warlock, but a warlock of Basement Cat. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with this meme. What he would call it. What he would call a dank May.
Oh God.
So it's a lot of meowing and a lot of memes. Like all the spells that he has like reflavored as being different types of online memes. He hates Ceiling Cat. I mean,
Arch nemesis, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
She gets real at my house come Sunday. That's what's going on.
That's really good.
I love kids so much.
Oh man, I mean these kids, you know, and what's funny, right, is that the group is like, it's like 2 girls and 3 boys. Like,
Nice.
you know, when I was a kid, I wouldn't have imagined this. Like, this is just not what the group's like. You'd have like a girl, and then, you know, she had all this weight on her. She had to represent every girl on Earth. You know, now
Yep.
you got backup. You come to a table like this, you got backup, right? And that's a norm now. Like, you're not going to see a table that isn't. You're not going to see a table that isn't broadly represented. That's just for kids that young. That's an expectation.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, I've taken my son to so many birthdays that are like 50-50 or 60-40 girls, boys, like Minecraft parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are the norms now. Like,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a departure, but we mentioned before going live the Crokinole board behind you.
Oh yeah.
But also, I mean, Chris Perkins and Alyssa from the C Team, your producer for the C Team.
She is all kinds of stuff. She's just
The
beast.
everything, yes. When are you going to stop kidnapping Canadians down to Seattle?
Never.
Okay.
Well, the portal to Canada is very near. And so we can always secure those northern resources.
Living in Vancouver, that sounds like a threat.
You're only a couple hours away.
I know.
At a moment's notice, I could bind you into a geesh.
Reverse ice just kicks down my door, throws a black cloth sack.
The nega ice.
Yeah.
We're halfway between Stargate and Canadian Bacon at this point. Is this campaign pitch?
He'll send the D team over to abduct you.
Indeed. So we went over to when we went to PAX Unplugged.
Yep.
There was a place, like a restaurant. Technically speaking, I think it's a chain, but it's such an odd chain, at least for the U.S. It's like a poutine chain.
Oh, Smokes?
Yeah.
Yeah, Smokes Poutineery. They're all right.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, they're all right. I mean, my understanding is that it goes to a crazy place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible to get superior poutine, but I'm saying poutine at all
Yes.
in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
you know, they have a poutine menu. And so that was actually what we did at the end of the show. I rolled down there with our accountant, Beth, Calderon, fan of the C team from online, Alyssa.
Nice.
And I mean, that's how I wrapped the show, was with a massive, like, terrain
Yeah.
of poutine.
A pound of fries and gravy.
And curds.
And proper
Squeaky cheese
curds.
curds.
They have to
It's a
squeak.
noble death.
Them curds.
Them dank curds.
I was just about to ask you if you got it like Philly style somehow, or it's like cream cheese and steak.
Ugh. Oh. No, they have a broad menu there, but that's Alyssa was there. Like, I'm not going to explore the menu. I'm going to try to get the thing that feels that you know, that she assesses as, you know,
Approaching
thoroughly.
authentic. Yep.
Yeah.
By the way, sir, I have a bone to pick with you in that I lived in or near Philadelphia for I moved around a bunch, but I lived there for like a total of 8 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And just after I leave, you start doing board game cons in Philly. Really?
Time to move back. I mean, that's, you know, listen, man, it's only going to be better next year. Like, we're going to take the theater, we're going to move the theater stuff into its own custom space that's off the floor. We're going to take all the space that was the theater and turn that into open tables. Trust me.
That sounds amazing.
Go back. Go back. And then you can get a DeNick's roast pork sandwich with broccoli rabe.
Yeah, exactly.
From the Reading Market.
Man.
You're done.
I chased PAX as long as I could, and then I had kids, and I'm not going to as many as I used to. But the board game PAX sounds like a treat.
I'm contractually obligated to go, so.
Yeah,
that's a really easy way to clear it with the fam, huh? Like, oh, yeah, I gotta be there.
It's work. Sorry.
That's how it is.
I know you're kind of limited on time tonight. You got family obligations. So
true.
I had a question I thought might be a good outro. At various PAXs, you showed off your freestyle and/or singing abilities.
Oh no!
So, do you have anything on the tip of your brain today?
No, those are not freestyles in the least. Those are all written. I mean, if not ahead of time, at least earlier that day. Can't spring that on me.
That's fair.
I DM'd you beforehand, and you said it was cool. So, lawyer.
Well, here. I mean, it's easy to solve. Just have me back on the show.
Done.
Oh, absolutely.
Deal.
And I will produce the content ahead of time.
Okay.
And it'll be great.
This will happen. So we need to get working on a Louisiana to Seattle portal, if you can work on that.
Like our Vancouver one?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get some stuff lined up for getting our whole 20-something person podcast posse down for PAX South.
Whoa.
So I know you are super busy during the whole thing, but if you happen to have time, I'm going to see if I can hit you up and
look, it's
come
not
to a mansion and play board games with us.
It's not 100%. I mean, the truth of the matter is that, there are holes in that schedule.
Oh yeah.
It could be that your scenario actually worked quite well. Just let me know.
Cool.
That's why what I like best about those shows is, like I said, talking to people, meeting new people. Like that's what I actually like to do.
Yep.
And if there's games involved as well, then we got a good thing going. All right, so who here is from Louisiana?
Just me.
Hey, so somebody was telling me about something. Can you hook me up?
What's up?
Have you ever heard of something called a crawfish boil?
That was her.
Yes, that was me about the crawfish boiled turkey. I told you about that.
No. So many people have talked to me about the boils since then. So this is a cultural norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so during the spring, crawfish season is any month that has an R in it, but usually February, March is the. I'm not kidding you with this. This is all 100%
It's a
true.
recognized phenomenon.
Yes, February or March, usually around Mardi Gras, between Mardi Gras and Easter is the best time to get crawfish. But usually what we do is we get like 30 or 40 people to come over. We have a pot big enough to put a person in. You get 40-pound sacks of crawfish, and potatoes, and sausage, and mushrooms, and like all kinds of veggies. And you get this powder that is basically spicy essence, and you put it till the water's orange, and then you boil the crawfish, and then you have that and all the sides and beer until your whole face burns, and it's delicious.
Is there butter?
You can have some for like the potatoes and stuff, but you really don't need it. Like
So what veggies? What veggies are in the pot?
Whatever you want to put. Usually, I do potatoes and corn, and
That's a classic. Oh, corn. Oh, see, I've seen that. I've actually seen that.
Yeah.
Like when it's sort of like dumped out, like on the plastic. I see like these like half cobs, and I'm like, God damn, spicy corn. That sounds great.
If it's not orange when it comes out, you fucked up.
Yeah, you've done fucked up. See, that sounds all right. Like I fantasized about that since I talked, since that season on Twitter. Like I think about it probably once or twice a week. So that's great news.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm driving to PAX South. So right next to all the trunk full of board games, I'm gonna get a tub of boil, which is good for about probably 70 or 80 pounds of crawfish. And I'm going to bring that to you, and you can boil whatever the hell seafood you want, and it will burn you to death.
I'm ready. Like I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
I'm going to commingle.
Yes.
With these creatures.
That's the way to do it. I mean, you have to be ready to get completely gross and slimy, and that's just
up to the elbows in crawfish.
Yeah.
Yes.
I support it. I support it 100%. I got to get in on this.
Yes. We'll hook something up. Seriously, if you are ever around here at the time, I will like.
Oh man! Don't tempt a motherfucker.
I have a shelf of like 60 board games. So.
Oh no! I believe it. Hey, so is there any other way I can be of service to you before I go? You let me know. You have any other questions that you wanted to tuck in?
I mean, we know we're getting pretty close to end time, so I mean.
Yeah. We didn't want to occupy so much more of your time.
So let's save it for next time.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say because we got to do the sequel.
Yeah.
One thing though, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet. We should do a rematch at Codenames at PAX South.
Oh, I am about it. I think that Codenames is a shockingly entertaining game, and it's one of those games that scales so well. With multiple players, like you can take a game. Like honestly, it's good at 2 players per team, and it is good at 4 or 5 players per team. Like not every game can sustain that.
Yep.
Well, and even more than that, to me, the really interesting thing, because I have a Codenames that I foist upon just about everybody. I feel like, and it plays in a really interesting ways across basically all social topographies. Like every group of people that you can put together will have some weird interaction during Codenames. Something weird and entertaining.
Totally. Yeah, because at the end of the day, right, the game is about language. And that's we're a type of ape that is very, very good at that type of thing. Like we have the tools to do it. And that's what I think is so special about that game is that it's really a game about human perception. Like some games have a lot of crazy stuff going on, and there's like multiple phases, and then you have like you have a reset phase, or you got 40 board games, you know what I'm talking about. I'm saying that there's a situation there like at a very, very fundamental level. Codenames is a game about being a person, and I think that's something that the net is so wide on that game. A lot of people, even people who think they don't like games, can make sense of that game. Like they can parse it right away.
Yep.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, hey.
Yes.
Listen, I have had an incredible time. Thank you so much for inviting me onto this cast. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely.
It's my
so
pleasure.
much fun.
Yeah. Hey, so Aaron, next time you have a hole in the schedule of some kind, just hit me up on DMs, and then I can roll through. Easy peasy.
Oh,
sweet.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
That is great.
thank you again. And yes, I next time I see you, beer and board games.
Oh, listen, you're speaking my language here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so
Have a good
much.
one.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
night.
much for coming.